Hello and welcome. Thank you all for being so patient with us. I'm very excited. I have a very special guest, and I'm going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Jasmine Ambrosia. I'm a witchy content creator, this, that, and the third. All of my links are down below. I will also have my guests' links as well. So if you would like to check out their channel, you can do so. And yeah, why don't you go ahead and kind of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you for those who might not know, which I don't know how they wouldn't know because your channel is incredible.
So my name is Jordan. I run a channel here on YouTube called GrimWire. I have a pretty eclectic background from the occult to spirituality, witchcraft. I've really had my hands in a lot of different things. I guess that's...
So what got you into creating content on YouTube?
That's a pretty good question. I've always been interested in like finding out the truth. I'm the type of person who like reads an article, I read a book, and I go like, that's not the whole story. There's got to be something else more there. And I just really love the idea of creating videos, of getting in front of the camera and filing it all and putting it out there for people to see.
And how long would you say that you've been watching related content on YouTube? Is that kind of part of what, you know, inspired you to start creating your own?
So I didn't start by watching related content on YouTube. In fact, there's probably not very many channels I do watch. But
about like the occult and paganism and witchcraft in general, or just like in general, you don't watch a lot of YouTube? Or
no, yeah, sorry, about like paganism and the occult YouTube videos.
Okay.
What I really got my start with was Aleister Crowley about 10 years ago. And I'm not sure how familiar you or your viewers are with Aleister Crowley, but he tends to put things very poetically, very usingly, and you can't like absorb it. It's definitely something you need to spend time with. So that was my first like realization that some of the stuff isn't put as friendly as it could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've definitely, I mean, we've talked about Aleister Crowley a bit on the channel before. And I think with like a lot of these, you know, modern, more Western, you know, occult influencers, I guess, if we're going to call them that, like there's highs and lows to them, you know, like there's really, I think that there are, of course, some big negatives to Crowley. But I do think that like that does not take away from, like I've talked with a lot of witches about this. Like I personally think that like the modern witchcraft movement, regardless of some of the things that Crowley has done, which are disreputable in my opinion, would not fundamentally be where it is today without Aleister Crowley. I don't think that we can deny Aleister Crowley's influence over modern craft at all.
I completely agree on both terms, for sure.
And yeah, I've watched some of your content as well, where you referenced some of Aleister Crowley's quotes. Do you feel like you have anything in particular that like Crowley has said that you feel like has stuck with you, or that kind of made like an aha moment for you, or that really resonated with you?
For sure. I can't remember which video I put, but it's the one that kind of sticks with me the most. I feel like he did a lot of things in his personal life. I agree with you, were kind of gross.
Yeah.
Well,
and I feel like, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've seen his chart, his astrological chart. And yeah, there's a lot of that in there too. Like his chart is very telling.
Yeah. But I guess that's contrasted in the quote where he said his adepts, like the people who, you know, are in his order, stand with their head in the heavens and their feet in the hells. So he's definitely about the duality of being a good person and, you know, like making growth in that way, but also not fearing the things that the 1900s didn't want to.
I'm sorry, give me just 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Someone was saying that we were having some sound issues. that I might need to pop in some earbuds for when Jordan is talking. I don't have any earbuds on me right now, so we just might have some technical difficulties during this live, unfortunately. Hopefully it's not too bad. It sounds okay on my side. You don't hear any sound issues? I have some moderators who are with me in person and they don't hear any sound issues. Jordan, do you hear any playback or sound issues on your side?
Everything sounds fine for me.
Okay, well, I guess we'll just kind of keep it going then. So can you reiterate again? I'm sorry, you were talking about a quote from Aleister Crowley that really kind of stuck with you. Can we go back to that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't remember it verbatim, obviously, but it was something along the lines of his adepts stand with their heads in the heaven and their feet in the hells.
Yes, I remember I think that you put that quote in one of your videos.
Definitely, yeah, I did. I don't think it was the Lilith one, but it definitely might have been. But anyways, what that means to me is he definitely believed in making yourself a better person, growth of like positive impact in the world as long as it was, part of your on earth. But he also wanted you to indulge in some of the things that the 1900s church didn't necessarily want you to.
Oh, completely. Yeah, that's one of the things that I feel like I resonate more so with Crowley is the complete hedonism of it all. I think that's probably one of the things that kind of attracted me to Crowley was I think that we have to kind of like pay some respect to the amount of hedonism that was so publicly celebrated in a time where, that was so controversial.
Exactly. Like one of the things he gets from like a lot of the, what would you say, like Christian haters was apparently one of his books about murdering children. But he actually used that as a reference and wasn't actually murdering children. So that was just, the time period they lived in where it was to write about the murder of children than what you did in the bedroom by yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think too that like I said, I think that it's undeniable the influence that Crowley has made in the modern occult world, especially here in the West. Like, regardless of whether, I feel like he's very much a figure that either you really love or you really hate. Like, I think that he has definitely made an impact amongst, others as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this, kind of like, let's start a little bit from the beginning, and it's okay if this,
sure.
if some of this is a little bit too personal, but like, how did you come into, well, actually first, and I know labels are labels, right? Like they're for food, not people theoretically, but like also there's a reason why labels exist and they can be helpful. So like when it comes to the occult, and when it comes to, paganism or the craft, like what labels or words do you choose like to identify with? Do you consider yourself a pagan, a neo-pagan, a witch, a magi? Like if any, if you had to pick.
If I had to pick, it probably would be a magus, a magician. And that's just because of the technology where I kind of draw those roots. I'm fine with pagan. I'm fine with witch. I'm fine with just spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Fine with a lot of words. None of them really, I don't vibe with. But yeah.
So in terms of, because you've also made a lot of pagan content like as well. Mm-hmm. So in terms of like your orthodoxy and your orthopraxy, do you just kind of consider yourself a magus, like a magician, like, and it's that, or like on a orthodoxy level, is there any particular thing that you subscribe to, or do you feel like your craft is your orthodoxy and your orthopraxy?
No, that's kind of a great question. I would say like my orthodoxy, like whatever works, like eclectic. Like if it works, then it works.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a certain like, perspective that you have to take things. And I guess I really don't know how else to phrase that besides if it works, it works.
Yeah. Like I've seen, you've made some Pantheon videos, mm-hmm. and I think you call it 60-second lessons, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. Incredible. I encourage everyone who's watching, like, really good content. Like, and I'm not just gassing you up for no reason. Like, you really do make really good educational content. And that's something that I mean, there's so much that goes into that. And there's something like, I very much admire that about your work that you do on YouTube, because it is work. And like, I know that it's evident that you put a lot of time and energy into what you are creating, and that you do a lot of research, and you really kind of do these deep dives in a variety of different topics. Like a variety. I mean, I've seen some of, like, I personally found you through your Lilith video. And I think that is also one of your more popular videos. And I was at the time just like looking for content on Lilith in general, because the Coven and I were kind of having conversations about this dark goddess archetype, right? And like kind of trying to define what exactly dark goddess is for us as individual witches, and then also how do we kind of work this into our coven craft, and what does this mean for not only us as individuals, but also like us as a group. So definitely you do want to say that like a whole coven of witches have like watched your content like it was a movie night or something. So yeah, I mean, 10s across the board. The Lilith video is incredible. And like I said, I encourage everyone, like if you're interested in some LHP, or you're interested in, you know, pantheons, paganism, witchcraft, your channel is definitely one that they should check out. I mean, I'm not just saying that for no reason. I really like your channel. I especially really liked the Lilith video.
I really appreciate that.
That's very much what caught my attention. And I really liked, I mean, I think it's a 45-minute long video that you did on Lilith. Like, it's not a short clip.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And I love your 60-second videos. I do like those.
I kind of have that split, right? It's because the 60-second videos are because a lot of the cults like the rant, and they'll just kind of like, you know, they're starting YouTube. They just set up their camera and they just talk about, you know, how and upload it. And like that's good in some situations, like a podcast or a live conversation like that. Just kind of sit back and listen to the conversation. But we're not getting anything too heavy. So yeah, in a situation like this, that's great. But 60 seconds are really like trying to do, where if you need that little bit of information, you go there. But the Lilith video, like for me, there was all these gaps. Like I knew of the Lilith, I knew of the archetype of the dark goddess. I knew, like these little bits here and there, but I didn't know how it all came for sure. And so that goal of that, video, I just started doing research. I wrote out the script, and then I realized 5 minutes.
Well, and I like how in the Lilith video, it kind of outlines from like, having Mesopotamian, Babylonian sort of beginnings, and then moving into looking at Lilith through this Abrahamic lens that we have, and then kind of defining her through, the demonization of like being the mother of all demons and, abominations and vampires and what that looks like and what that means. And also like, I appreciate how you kind of talked about Lilith from the perspective of also of different cultures. Like, I think that really shows that like, this was not just you turned your phone on, like, cause that's me. That's definitely me. Like, I'm like, I just kick the phone on and just get to talking. Like, that's what I do. And I am so terrible with technology. So when I see people who are able to like, I call it like tech witchery is what I call it. That is not a craft that I have mastered at all. Seriously, like believe it, like I do everything from my iPhone. If I can't do it from my iPhone, it's probably not happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought it was a really, really well thought out, researched, put together video. So now one thing I've noticed about your channel is that a lot of it is very, I feel like, objective and educational based. And like, it leaves me also wanting to know more about the person who's creating this content. And I think you only really have a couple videos where you're really sharing your own personal opinion and not presenting something almost like a thesis. Not that that's a bad thing, but that's also why I wanted to have this interview, because I was like, I want to get to know like who's making this content.
For sure. Is that an open floor then?
Yeah.
Oof. I guess that's why I present things in such kind of like, you know, the educational way, is because I don't really know what I believe. I have a lot of different ideas. And as I kind of told you a second before, I did vibe with a lot of things that in our job, whether it's like a monotheistic sort of one supreme, and then each deity is, you know, like a slice of the, you know, that.
A slice of pizza.
Exactly. So that I would say that's almost where I tend to go the heaviest. But at the same time, like some of my own personal question, is there hard politics? Are there different, you know, deities that are actually watching out fire enough? And honestly, I don't really know. I would say I connect, and it might have been a good thing to mention earlier, but I connect with Hinduism, their teaching. I've had experiences that have led me to kind of perceive and that kind of Brahmin sort of source. That so I really thought that. And as I said before, like, I don't know how it works, what works. I just know kind of what does. And that's what I just try to talk on what I've experienced and what I kind of know as much.
Yeah, I agree. And I've talked with, you know, witches in and out of our coven here locally about divinity, because also too, like, there's the conversation that, like, there's plenty of, regardless of what label you choose to use, like, there is plenty of magical practitioners who don't even work with deity. Like, they're not even atheistic, they're just non-theistic. And like, I think that that's something that is being more and more normalized, because like, in the 90s, that's like very radical. You know, I mean, we had like Silver Ravenwolf and Scott Cunningham, and like, these were some of these publishers for that era who were like making content, books, and it was primarily very Wiccan based. And I feel like in the Western occult world, we're very much evolving into exploring other avenues. And I very much personally, just me, feel like I agree with a lot of some of these, you know, Hindu ideas in this aspect, that you have the source, which is Brahma, and then like you have these personified energies that go through Brahma. Like, I maybe don't necessarily call it Brahma. Like, to me, it's just dark goddess energy, dark matter, you know, the abyss, if you will. And like, all things have come from darkness, all things shall return from darkness, whatever. While I believe that deity and the gods are, I believe them to be personified energies that like different cultures and geographic locations have kind of put their own image onto them. And like, but like, we're talking about energy at the end of the day. And like, that's what I was talking about in one of the videos, is like, you know, whether it's Venus or Aphrodite, it's like, we're still kind of talking about a similar energy. Now, there are differences, I feel like, between like Kali and like Freya and like Hecate. Like, I'm not saying there's not differences. Sure, of course. But there are still like similar frequencies of energy. And whether that energy is fully sentient or whether we've made it sentient, like, you know, that's also. And then part of like the left-hand path that I really agree with as well is like, we are gods. Yes. Like, you know, like, I take as above, so below, in the sense that as the gods, so are we. And even from like an Abrahamic, like, oh, made in his image, sort of speak, like, what if we are the living gods? Like, we are the gods. You know?
Sure. It definitely vibes with the Hinduism too, because in Hinduism, Brahma is just all the kind of above deities, but Brahma's in each one of us, or Par Brahman, each one of us. So it's the innermost self, or higher self, is the thing that is the God. So for sure, I definitely vibe with.
And how long, I mean, I've only recently come across your channel, but how long have you been on YouTube?
For YouTube, it is a little more than a year now.
Okay, so like, And I was shocked after watching your little video, because I went to your channel and I was like, well, okay, that was really enjoyable. Let me see if maybe there's some other stuff that I would enjoy. And there was, and I commented on it, of course. I was like, I think I watched your Greek Pantheon one as well. And I was like, wow, yeah. I really liked how you put them into tiers, like the nerd in me, like the D&D, World of Warcraft, like nerd in me just was gushing over the fact that we were putting these deities into like tiers. That was just such a cool concept there. But yeah, what has your time been like? You said it's been about a year or a little over a year. Like, how has it been for you on the creator side here on YouTube, making this sort of content?
It's definitely been thrilling because I definitely like, you know, because I get a lot out of it myself. I'm not just trying to necessarily put out content just for other people. I want to learn myself too. So that was, for example, why I did the Greek Pantheon video for 24 Greek. I really looked up all the different ones I could that felt kind of significant enough. Because honestly, before I made that video, I didn't know the difference between Hera or I kept trying to remember which one's which. And so I was like, all right, I'll get this down. I want to figure this out. And so I just, you know, put in the time to make it. And it's been a lot of learning kind of what, you know, does successful on YouTube. When I first started out, I had a few more videos more towards the spirituality side that were a little bit more hand-based. But as making videos, I realized what I liked and what to respond to was more information. Like deity videos. But even in that, what I try to do is balance out. You have lots of mythology, right, where they tell you, you know, this is this, and this is like they only go into history. So I always try to reach that balance of covering the history, of covering all the technical information, and kind of giving little bits of my own experience here and there to kind of make it more, you know, appealing to the modern craft spirituality occult crowd.
I'm totally going to highlight this comment by Sora saying that YouTube has become Jordan's GrimWire. Like, yeah, I definitely can agree. Cause like, you know, also as someone who teaches occult classes and stuff at like a brick and mortar store and everything, like, I think that learning like is also a teaching style. So like when you're talking about like, I was making some of this content cause I wanted to learn about it. Like that's how some people learn is by teaching others what they are learning.
For sure.
So have you had any juicy, controversial, scandalous, weird things that have happened on YouTube? I mean, I definitely have gotten, for those of you who were here last night and my Coven sisters and I live stream, I'm sure you saw some of that fiasco of like the bots. We had a lot of bots, but I mean, I've gotten plenty of weird comments. Have you gotten any, you know, people condemning you or, I mean, I feel like you have to.
Luckily, those are real easy to brush off. I grew up a Christian. Like I went to church the first 12, 14 years of my life. So I'm real used to the, you're going to burn and fire comments. It's real easy for me to just delete, no issue. I haven't had anything too exciting. Like I get kind of like the normal crazy, where it's just kind of like, I have no idea what you're ranting right now, but
yeah, it's weird to me too, to think that like, I mean, they're seeking the content out, right? Like, it's not like it's just necessarily randomly falling onto their browser. Like they're specifically going and targeting magical practitioners, pagans, witches, magicians, whatever words we want to, like they're looking for that content to leave those sorts of comments, which is just like, how pathetic and sad and miserable is that?
Now, I guess like that does confuse me. Like why did, I'm imagining YouTube's algorithm has some sort of part in it. They just happen to click on one and leave a comment. YouTube thinks, oh, they like it, and promotes more, and then they get into the. I don't know how it works, but I've seen lots of a moderate amount of just, you know, you're going to hell, repent. I actually,
right.
Oh, for sure. I've set a lot of those as filters. So if anybody says like,
Okay.
that's or repent, it automatically gets flagged. Because I also feel like it's my job to create a pseudo safe space. Like obviously you can like, but I think people should not have to comments, especially when you're starting off. Especially
Right.
they're like coming from a Christian background. There is a lot of confusion, a lot of guilt in a way because I'm good at that, and making you just feel bad and dirty. And I just don't like that on my content.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, there's also religious trauma, and like indoctrination abuse is very much a real thing. And I think that as creators, like we have to just be conscientious about the spaces that we are creating. You do that, you know, while maybe for you it just kind of like rolls off your back, someone who is watching your content, who's reading through comments, that like might affect them differently. So I think it's nice that you're taking responsibility for your own, you know, little personal space in this weird digital world.
Mm-hmm. Now I've also had some pleasant comments, like, and not very many, from Christian. I had one that said, I was surprised that you speak with the amount of conviction that I do about, you know, Jesus. And just gave like a little peace sign. I was like, that's awesome. Like, it's awesome to see that. And so I thought that was really cool. And some I've had that are more curious. They want to engage on some level, but it's usually pretty easy to tell the trolls who are legitimately curious.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, and I just, the whole idea of like someone being like, I'm going to wake up today and go troll someone on the internet, like, it's just strange to me, you know, because like that's not paying your bills. That's not developing you as a person mentally, physically, spiritually, sexually. I mean, anyly, you know, like it's not developing for you at all. It's not helping you at all. Maybe it makes them feel good for like a couple seconds to be like, oh, cool, I put someone down. And, you know, but it's like, you're really, I mean, when I get comments like that, I mean, I get comments like condemning me to hell, commenting on my body, asking just like really weird, invasive questions, or just trying to flat out argue with me, like over what I believe. It just, for me, it kind of normally just kind of like rolls off my back because I'm like, for one, I don't even know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you're subbed and watching my content and you're paying my bills by thumbing down my videos and being negative at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, you're putting Starbucks in my belly, you know, like by being that way. So, but I know too that like, I think that we do have to be responsible for the spaces that we create in the physical, the digital, and the astral. And so I just think it's good that like, also you're kind of doing that as well, because it can be very triggering. And I've had people before, you know, where in like my podcast, As the Cauldron Bubbles, there was an episode talking about religious trauma, and like people were sharing their own religious traumas in the comments, which is great. But then of course there were like people trolling people sharing their religious trauma. And I just like, that's kind of like a zero tolerance thing.
Definitely.
You know, that's just kind of zero tolerance for me. So, okay. Do you feel like there's any particular, you know, pantheon that sticks out to you, or one that you feel, I mean, because I think, have you made the Egyptian one yet? I don't think I've seen it.
Honestly, that has just blown up into this giant project. Right now the script is 50 pages long, like 40.
There's a lot to that one, I'm sure.
There's a lot. But that was, once again, that was the goal with that one, was I wanted to take time. I didn't know, like, you know, because that's the first thing you hear about the Egyptian pantheon, is there's countless deities. I narrowed down the list to about 40. That is about as expansive I can get. Like, you know, there's Wikipedia entries on them, like I talked about online. And so I narrowed that down to 40. I have like a 20-minute planned on the history of the Egyptians.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, like, the difference between some of the kingdoms and why this kind of fades out and why that. And but yeah, I just decided to kind of take my time with that one instead of trying to rush it. far as personally, I actually did connect with the Pantheon way more than I really attracted to the kind of solar energy, which I guess sets it apart from a lot of witch practitioners, like pretty hard. Definitely about the sun, not instead of the moon, but if I had to choose one, it would definitely be the solar energy. Being inspirational, of bright and bubbly, definitely what I prefer. And just way kind of some of their stories I really but historically for me I've always connected with the Hindu pantheon the most. Shiva was actually one of the first deities that ever kind of like contacted me, that reached out to me. And Lakshmi is what I would consider my matron.
Okay.
Or they're not the pair, I am aware.
Sure.
They're not.
But also, like what you were saying earlier, like you do what works for you, you know? And I also think that the divine and divinity, like that is something that is so personal that like how I think what's more inappropriate, like Belladonna, who I've had on a live stream, she was like, I think it's inappropriate for witches to tell other witches what's inappropriate. You know, because it's such a personal thing, and like your relationship with the gods is your relationship with the gods. No one else has to share. I feel like the way that we feel, our convictions or our experiences, it doesn't make it any less valid. You know what I mean?
Completely.
Because I also feel like there's kind of this thing that like having belief in these old gods, if you will, like that's an experience of itself. And like, there's no amount of convincing that anyone can do to convince me that I'm not having these experiences, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you lean more towards, you said the solar energy, it would be the Hindu pantheon, you know, specifically that you kind of felt attracted to. Have you ever like been to like a Hindu temple, like a mandir? I know that I have one like right around the corner from my house. Have you ever like tried going to like a mandir, since that's what you're attracted to? Have you ever, you know, gone to any like rites or rituals or, you know, puja'd in a mandir?
Unfortunately, I haven't.
Is that something that you think that you would do, or do you think that's even something that could be like beneficial for you?
Yeah. I definitely, like, India is my number one foreign that I want to go to. As soon as I have the opportunity to go away on vacation, I'm going to go. I've never done much research, but really nothing has ever popped out as a local kind of legitimate Hindu hotspot.
Okay.
Otherwise, yeah, that's definitely something. And back in college, I would live in Columbus, and there was a Society of Krishna. I forget what they're called, but that's still like they're kind of sectish, like they have their own beliefs, necessarily aligned with more general vibe. So I guess I just haven't really had a good opportunity. There's nowhere I've ever found, but I would totally love it.
Yeah, I really wish that, like, you know, we have a really beautiful mandir where I live. It's gorgeous. It was also built by the community. So it was a community effort to build it. It's huge.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty much open 7 days a week. They do host pujas. They host prayer circles and all of that. They have events that you can go to. And one of the things I love about it is like after the event, there's always a huge vegetarian like buffet that's like free, you know? Wow. And it's like so delicious. I really enjoy going to this particular, I don't know if all mandirs are like this because I've only been to one mandir, and it's the one literally around the corner from where I live. And like I can send you photos and stuff. Like the outside is like marble, like it's gorgeous. And there's like around the exterior of the mandir is like large depictions of the like Vedas and events and like the gods and everything. But they have like an office where you can go and you can actually buy ingredients to like properly puja with, and like you can get incense and oranges and mangoes and bananas, and like you can take them in and like when you prostrate and like you pray and you puja in front of these different shrines as you're making your way about, they have places to like put those. And like they have pujaris there and priests that like also help you too and like educate you. And like if you don't know, and like, you know, they're like super welcoming there. And I don't know if that's how all mandirs are, but
yeah, no, that would totally be awesome to experience something like that for sure.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's very, very cool for sure. So, in terms of creating content on YouTube, right? Do you feel like as a creator, as someone making this sort of content, that you find yourself, you know, kind of just wondering, like, while you are creating this content, do you think that that can also kind of be a signifier from divinity? Like the reason that you're making this content is like because something's pulling you or calling you or guiding you?
Yes, definitely. So my biggest recent video was on Freya. It was similar to the Lilith one. It was about 30 minutes long. I can't quite find as much because the Norse.
Yeah, you said Freya. Did you say Freya?
Freya, yeah.
Yeah, I have a coven mate who Freya is she's actually a moderator here in the chat. If she wants to say hello and claim that, she can. She's also here with me in person. She's helping moderate, but if she wants to talk about that in the comments, she can. But Freya is something that's very personal for her, and like
Sure.
I sent her like your Freya video.
Yeah. No, that was definitely inspired by like an offering almost, because you give what you have. And what I had was, you know, I've always been kind of interested, and I reached out, and I did a little love spell sort of thing. It had pretty decent results, and so I was like, you know what, I'll video on you, word out there. Yeah, that was kind of the most objective example of that. But in general, I feel some sort of pull in order to do a video. If I'm putting in tons of research, if I'm putting in, you know, all the time editing and all, then I need to feel some sort of pull towards that deity.
Well, and that's what I was saying earlier too, is like, I know it's a lot of work. Like, because even just like my little videos where I just like throw my phone up and just like scream at a camera for 20 minutes and then I go back and like splice it, like that's enough. Like that's exhausting enough for me just using iMovie.
Oh, definitely.
So how has, like, what has, I don't know, do we call it witchcraft? Is that what we're calling it? I don't know what label you necessarily subscribe to, but what has the craft or what has magic? What do you feel like it has done for you?
I don't want to be too, I don't know the term here, but to kind of informally stuff. I have a vague idea, like high magic, and I don't want to call it low magic, earth magic. So for me, high magic is about kind of like the growth of becoming about your mission here on Earth. Kind of just connecting with the universe, a lot of kind of more transparent ideas. And then more earthly magic is about, you know, for example, right now I'm a web developer. I work from home, my business is my own, so I like own my own business. And that's how I pay the bills with YouTube. Eventually I'd like this to get big enough where YouTube's paying my but so like Lakshmi being my matron goddess, you know, I believe really out with it. Like a really big ritual for her, and then literally a week I got one of the big jobs of my life, you know, pretty much going for, and so that was absolutely, I guess, by definition, magical.
And how do you feel like, I mean, because there's also kind of the topic, I know that some witches, we kind of call it like being out of the broom closet, and like to an extent you are. I mean, a lot of your content is very educational based and like you're presenting information, and it's not necessarily always like vlog type where, like, you know, like I said earlier, like it's not always as personal. I think you have a couple of videos where you've kind of like shared some personal stuff. But how do you feel like this has affected also your life outside of magic, just maybe with your family or interpersonal relationships, be it, you know, romantic or platonic. Or I was going to ask about work, but you kind of already answered that one since you said that you work for yourself.
Yeah. So I've always been, so like in high school, I was kind of like that. Yes. I would, you know, argue with my parents, argue with my friends who were Christian. So I guess a lot of people have always known I've been religious, whatever, and they've not cared too much to ask or question or whatever. So luckily, I'm in a spot where, or I've always been in a spot where my religious beliefs were never, you know, put me in any danger. Either if it's losing a home, or losing the respect of a loved one. So I've always felt very lucky with that. That I know a lot of people who live in, especially Christian households, a lot harder time and face a lot of stuff because of that. But I've never been in a situation like that. Overall, like, yeah, it just hasn't played much of an impact. As far as like romantic, like my current girlfriend is actually a member of OTO.
Oh, really?
Yeah, of one of Thelema's schools, however you phrase that, magic, and obviously get along there. I don't think I could ever be too close to somebody who wasn't into some level of that. And
Yeah.
I see the posts that are like, you know, my boyfriend, girlfriend, what do I do? Because I'm always like, just leave them.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that that's a similar path that you would see yourself going down into, you know, getting into, initiating into, or sharing, or?
Definitely. Because of my history with Aleister Crowley and Thelema in general, I've talked to her about taking an initiation. Right now, like COVID restrictions make that pretty difficult. And that's what's like literally holding me back at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But that would still be like most recent videos I tried doing like an ask me anything sort of deal. And I gave my opinion / experience. Looking for a group, you should look more for community and people who you trust and care about, rather than like looking for the next secret or looking for who's going to unlock your hidden inner power or some stuff like that you see in a lot of type things.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear what you're saying, and I definitely feel like the polar opposite in the regard that, like, I think that, I don't know if it's just me as like a witch and like kind of my experience as a witch, but I much prefer having relations with non-magical folk.
Really?
Like, I like friendships with other magical folk, but
Okay.
like, I'm not trying to share an altar space. I'm not trying to share my herbs, my oils, my witchy room. Like, I mean, there's just certain things that, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't speak so soon theoretically and like say that I would never, but I don't know. I've just seen other partners too. Like, I've seen people with their partners, I should say, who they're both magical, and it's like they share an altar together and they like share items and tools, and that works for them and they love it. And I think that's wonderful. But I'm also just like, well, what if something happened and like now like that energy is all over? Like, I don't know, like sharing
No,
like a ritual dagger with like your partner, and then you and your partner break up and you still have the ritual dagger. Like, one of the mods over here is like doing this slicing, dicing. It's a knife stabbing action that they're doing. So it was just funny. But yeah, like I would just be like, I don't know if I could. And also too, like, I'm the witch, you know?
yeah. That's what I can definitely see it from that perspective.
I'm like, you're not putting a root on me. Okay.
We do share an altar, but neither one of us are really connected in that way. For us, it's more like the match, where we each have our own tarot cards. I have a few statues. She has things from, you know, her experience with Theo, and it's kind of just all in the same spot. But individually, we do practice really separately.
Yeah.
I tend to be like, I guess surprisingly, I tend to be more into like the kind of witchcraft, connecting to deities, being out in nature vibe, much more so she does. She's more magic, and stuff like that. So we're different enough where we don't run into the problems, but I can definitely see kind of where you're coming from.
Well, and it's just something as well that like I've seen in the local community, where like, so for example, like kind of one of the tenets in our personal coven is like, you don't, your sisters or, you know, your brothers in the cloak or your sisters in the night or your siblings in the craft, you don't them, right? Like, because that kind of can blur lines in a way, like, because if there's this big ritual taking place and like we're all meant to meet up at this appointed time at this appointed hour, and like you and your bestie over here, well, not your bestie, but like your partner over here just got into a screaming match, and then you guys are coming to ritual, it's like now that energy is being brought into the coven's ritual, and like we're going to feel it because we're all so connected. And I'm not saying at all that that has anything to do with you and your partner, because I think each relationship is very different, and I think every couple is different. I think I've probably just experienced, or not experienced, I've seen more of like how when you start mixing sexual and romantic energy with someone and you're also sharing ritualistic space, I've seen how that can go south really quick.
You're right.
And, you know, even taking magic out of it, where I've seen just social groups be completely split into two because, you know.
For sure. No, it definitely makes a lot of sense, especially with like intermingling in the same coven. Like I can see that for sure.
Right. I mean, talking about a tradition, that's one thing, but like a tight-knit group of a handful of people, that's another thing. Even like I said, taking the magic out of it, it can get very messy very easily. So I am looking at this time here as well, and I do have a couple more questions I want to ask you before we end the stream, because I normally stream for about an hour.
For sure.
And we're hitting the like 45 minute mark. But what would you say to anyone who's like, you know, getting into the craft, paganism, the occult, like if anyone who's watching right now, you know, is new to this, like what advice do you feel like you would give them?
My general go-to, which I tell about just everyone I can, is just stop stressing about what other people say. Stop worrying about it. People do it that way, and just do what feels right.
Trust the vibes.
Yeah, for sure.
Trust the vibes. Well, cool. I like I said, I really appreciate you. Like I am honored that you even responded to my comment, because I mean, I get it. Like I'm sure you get a lot of comments and it's very easy to miss stuff. I know that I do. And so when I had mentioned doing something like this, like I was super excited that not only did you like respond, but you were also like, okay, cool, give me more information. I think I'm down.
For sure. No, I've been trying to reach out to other content creators just about the whole time I've had my channel up. I love the idea of collaborating, of you know, somebody else and just getting different perspectives. I think that's awesome. So
yeah, thank you. And I one of the things that I do on my channel from time to time is like, do all witches think the same? I don't know if you've watched any of like BuzzFeed's sort of content where they take this topic and they do like, do all Muslims think the same? Do all men think the same? It's the whatever, do all whatever think the same. And I've kind of taken inspiration from this idea as like, do all witches think the same? And we can talk about this at another time, but there's 2 lives I've already done like this, and I want to plan another one. And basically it's where I bring like a panel of like magical practitioners on, and then like very controversial statements about the craft are made. Like, you know, I practice blood magic, or I believe in a afterlife, or I believe that the divine are sentient, or I believe in karma, or I believe in the rule of 3, or just whatever, right? And when I say controversial, I don't mean talking about people's like basic human rights, because that's not going to be entertained, of course. I'm talking about like controversial craft topics. So we can talk about that another time, but I would love to have you on one of those lives as well. I think that you would offer a really nice, you know, perspective.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
So I am going to just kind of like leave the floor open to anyone who's watching right now. So if anyone has any questions for Jordan, for GrimWire, if you will, Mr. Grim, if anyone has any questions for Grim, feel free to leave those questions down below, and we'll just kind of like kick it for a minute and just see if we have any questions.
I will say real quick, take a quick moment of patting myself on the back. The pun that is the name GrimWire. From LimeWire is where I was thinking, and then GrimWire.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of how that came to be.
Yeah, for sure. Like
Gotcha.
a technology GrimWire. So,
I mean, checks out. And I do think that names hold power too. I mean, my channel name is kind of basic because it's just my name. Like, it's nothing crazy. I guess it's like immortal flower or something. Fruit of the gods that makes an immortal flower or something. If you're going to really read into it.
no, it does work. So,
yeah, most of my content lately, I've just been like, you know, doing more baneful magic stuff. Like, let's make a bunch of curse videos and talk about hex and your ex. Fun stuff like that.
no, I've definitely tried figuring out how I can get more personal on my channel.
Just record. Just put your camera, just hit record, and just talk.
But see, I'm a Virgo. So it's not that easy for me. It has to be organized. It has
Okay, a Virgo what though? Like, you're more than just your sun sign though.
What is it? Capricorn moon and Scorpio rising.
Okay.
It's not.
Yeah, I think I met that Scorpio rising when you first came on before we went live, because I was like, hello, and you were like, hi.
Sorry.
So what is your next magical content? What is your next magical content that you're going to create?
Yeah, so I touched on it a little bit. The Egyptian series is what I have planned. I have 2 videos of kind of background, looking at the history of the ancient Egyptians, and then looking at their magic and belief, going into the afterlife, how they saw the human soul. And then I have a whole bunch of videos for deities of the Egyptian pantheon. I tried my best to arrange them as well as I could, kind of starting up at the top, the most primordial, and then kind of coming on down to things that people use more in their average everyday life. I've also been thinking a lot and planning a lot on getting more left-hand path videos.
Please.
Yes, because the Baphomet and Lilith ones I've done are about the most successful.
Imagine that.
And a few other, just vibes in that area.
We also want to know, living in this age of information, how do you sift through the dirt when researching esoteric info?
That's a great question. I'll say first, in my opinion, once again, this is just my opinion, I think because I see this question worded a few different ways online, like groups and stuff that I've seen. I think there's a bit too much of a worry to make sure you're getting the right information. And so I just have things where they are. It's either historical information, or in that case, like it's either right or wrong. Like historians agree, don't agree. And that's what it comes down to. But things that can be kind of more up in the air are like, what do you offer a certain deity? Like, what does a deity like is offering?
Right. And how much of it too is like, how much of it is in a book and how much of it is an experience?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
So in cases like that, I just go with, kind of my own personal guess. Does other people are saying, does it vibe with me? My trust is different, I'm a lot more likely to trust small-time creator than I am, like you kind of mentioned, the BuzzFeed article.
Right.
So that for sure.
Yeah, and I'm in no way sponsored or promoting or endorsed or connected or affiliated, of course, in any way, nor do I want to be. But it was just something I saw that they had done, and I took some inspiration, from that. But yeah, no, thank you again, though, for coming on the channel. I would love to have you on again. I'd be more than happy to, collab with you in the future, whatever that might look like. We can talk about that later off air, but yeah, thank you again so much. And I want to thank everyone who came to watch and support. And definitely go check out, GrimWire's channel. It's linked down in the description below. And yes, until next time, blessed be, and I'll see you in hell.
Thank you very much. Have a good one, guys. Bye.